Hey there, this is Daniel Hadaway and this is Drummer Daily. Welcome back. This is episode number 168. Hey, it would help me out so much if you could take 5 minutes out of your day, maybe even right now. Go to danielhadaway.com/168 and right underneath the player for this podcast episode, you will find a link to a 5-minute survey that will just help me learn a little bit more about you and what you do and don't like about this podcast, and will help me continue to make this podcast, but not only make it, but make it in a way that you enjoy and that you want to hear. So again, go to danielhadaway.com/168 and click on the survey link underneath the player and take 5 minutes to fill out a survey. That'll help me so much. I really appreciate it. Hey, so today we're going to follow up on yesterday's episode. Now, yesterday we talked a little bit about playing and hitting the center of the drum head. So if you missed out on that, you can go to danielhadaway.com/167 and check that episode out. But these two episodes are not necessarily, they don't have to be listened to in any kind of order. So hang with me here. Don't go there right now. Stick with me. So today I wanted to give you another tip about playing. And now yesterday was something that's very practical, very pragmatic. It was if you're not doing this thing, then you need to work on it. Today is not so much it's not so hardcore as yesterday. I'll say that. So today I get a lot of questions. And again, this is when I do one-on-one teaching sessions with drummers. I get a lot of questions about how I play the kick drum. And now I do want to say that this is not, if you watch me play, my Instagram videos or whatever, if you watch me play the drums, you're not going to be blown away by my speed or anything significantly, earth-shattering. And so the questions that I get about my playing are more about my ability to be consistent with volume. I have what many might consider to be a heavy foot, meaning that my kick drum I play it pretty good and hard and solid. And I actually think that's a crucial part of my unique sound is my heavy kick drum foot. But that doesn't always work for everyone. That's just my own sound. And again, like we talked about yesterday, I have worked hard to have control over that, where if I don't need to use that heavy kick drum foot, I cannot use it as well. I don't just do anything by habit. But I do want to tell you a little bit about how I approach playing the kick drum from a physical standpoint, because I think that it has contributed to my ability to avoid getting injured through like repetitive strain injury or anything like that. And it also has contributed to my ability to kind of control and play a little more musically with my kick drum foot, which is something a lot of people overlook. A lot of times people think about hitting the kick drum, they think either I'm hitting it or I don't. Now, so the first thing I want to tell you is that I play heel up, meaning my heel does not touch the bass, the plate, the kick plate, or whatever you call that, the foot plate on the kick drum pedal when I play. My heel is up. And I've been surprised actually in working with drummers how many drummers play heel down. The problem with playing heel down, in my opinion, is that you are relying on the strength of your ankle basically to give you all of the power and movement in your kick drum playing. And honestly, you can't play that loud just with your ankle unless you have some kind of really long kick drum pedal or something. There's just not enough leverage on the kick drum pedal that way to get a lot of power. So I like to approach my kick drum playing really the same way that anyone would approach holding a drumstick with our hand. So I like to draw a parallel between the parts of my foot and my leg and the parts of my arm and my hand. So for example, I think of my toes playing the same role in my kick drum foot as my fingers play when I'm holding a drumstick. And I think of my foot and the ball of my foot like the palm of my hand. I think of my ankle playing the same role in my kick drum playing that my wrist would play in playing on the snare drum or the hi-hat or whatever with my hands. In the same way, I think of my calf being my forearm and my knee being my elbow, all the way up the whole path of movement for my kick drum. I think about that the same way that I think about playing with my hands. So what that means is I have to incorporate all of those parts of my foot and my ankle and my leg into my drumming. So I'm kind of looking at my foot while I'm describing this to you. The way I can describe to you how I play my kick drum is like this. If you're sitting in a chair, put your toes on the ground, put your whole foot flat on the ground. Now I'm keeping your toes and I'd say the ball of your foot, the bone that's just below your toes, keeping that on the ground. Lift up your heel, so your foot's kind of pointed at the ground, but your toes are kind of bent back a little bit to rest on the ground, but your heel is up. Now, when you're at that point, I want you to lift your whole leg up so that your toes come off the ground, but your foot is still angled. And then push down where just your toes, that same bent part of your foot is striking the ground again. And then if you were to move your ankle and push down forward with your ankle so that you're almost kind of like tapping your toes on the ground without your heel hitting the ground, that's the movement that I make to play the kick drum. And what that allows me to do is, for the big powerful hits, I move my whole leg. For the little intricate little in-between passing notes or pickup notes, or the little like 16th like da-da-doom, da-da-doom, doom, the little short notes, I use just my ankle and my toes. But then for the bigger notes, I use my whole leg. So it allows me to have control over my playing the same way that I would have control over my hands. Now, this isn't something that you're just going to get right away, but it's something that if you work towards, it can be helpful. Now, again, I'm not telling you if you don't play this way that you're playing wrong or that you should change. I like to try everything though and see what works and doesn't work. So I would encourage you to try this and say, you know what, I see there's something there, I'm going to keep working on it. Or you can try it and say, you know what, this isn't working for me, this is pretty awful, I don't know what Daniel's thinking, this is weird. Either way works for me. But I do just want to say that doing this allows me to have a lot of control, but it also allows me to, in certain kick drum situations, there's another question people always say, do you bury the bass drum beater in the head? So in other words, do you leave the beater on the head or do you pick it up off the head when you hit the bass drum or the kick drum every time? And my answer is, I do it either way, depending on the situation, the song, the sound of the drum. I choose. I actually don't do it one way or the other 100% of the time. I actually do choose. And this method of playing the kick drum does allow me much more flexibility in being able to do that, because there's a lot more moving parts, but it means I have a lot more choice in what I do. But again, you can't do any of this stuff if you're not aware of your playing and you're not exercising control over your own playing. In other words, that's the goal with all of this stuff. Like I mentioned yesterday in the podcast, the goal with this is not to become perfect or a machine or a robot and overly mechanical sounding or too perfect. The goal is to have ultimate control over everything we do, so that we are able to be musical in our drumming. So I hope that helps you out. Send me an email if my description is not accurate or is really confusing as far as how I play my kick drum. Let me know, and maybe I'll post a video or something trying to show it a little bit better. And also, don't forget about the survey that I mentioned earlier. If you go to danielhadaway.com/168, fill that out. Like I said, super fast, super helpful. And I will look forward to seeing what you guys have to say about the podcast. All right, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk again real soon. Bye for now.